My fingers, I can't play. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Time out. Can you get a few sheets? I think these ladies know. I don't know. Do you know the words? Okay, we have sheets for you.
It's the first time.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. We should have started.
No, they're on the door.
On the door. Okay, maybe any help. Yeah, this is a song that we traditionally sing at the beginning of every class, and it describes Krishna in Vrindavan. And so you can follow along, and then you can read the translation. You'll be able to see it. Hare Krishna. All right, let's try again. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Mr. Paramahansa Parudikacharya. Ashtotar to the Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Purajaka Astotra Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, sorry. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Okay. On the 16th day of November 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Srimad Bhagavad Gita, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are reading from the 9th chapter entitled The Most Confidential Knowledge. We'll be beginning on page 375, and then we'll skip to the middle of the purport because it's such a long purport we didn't finish it. Okay. Rajavidya. Okay, start again. 375. Okay. Rajavidya. Rajaguhyam. Pavitram. Idam uttamam. Pratyakshaavagamam. Dharmyam. Su-sukham. Kartumabhyayam. Rajavidya Rajaguhyam. Pavitram idamuttamam. Pratyakshaavagamam dharmyam. Su-sukham kartumabhyayam. You have a different page? Yeah, there's one. You have the one book. Let me have that book after class. So I'm going to take it home. Rajavidya Rajaguhyam. Pavitram idamuttamam. Pratyakshaavagamam dharmyam. Su-sukham kartumabhyayam. Rajavidya Rajaguhyam. Pavitram idamuttamam. Pratyakshaavagamam dharmyam. Su-sukham kartumabhyayam. Okay, before we begin, we're in the chapter 9, text 2. You got a smaller book. Chapter 9, text 2. You can see it in the middle at the top of the page. There you go. Okay, so everyone on the, I couldn't say same page. We go all different pages numbers, but right verse. Okay, you want to start?
Rajavidya Rajaguhyam.
Rajavidya Rajaguhyam.
Pavitram idam uttamam.
Pavitram idam uttamam.
Pratyakshavagam dharmyam.
Pratyakshaavagamam dharmyam.
Su-sukham kartum avyam.
Su-sukham kartumabhyayam. Bhajamandal. Rajavidya Rajaguhyam. Pavitram idam uttamam. Pratyakshaavagamam. Pratyakshaavagamam dharmyam. Su-sukham kartumabhyayam. Manoram, you want to try? Rajavidya Rajaguhyam. Pavitram idam uttamam. Pratyakshaavagamam dharmyam. Su-sukham kartumabhyayam. Anyone else want to try it?
I'll try.
Okay.
Rajavidya Rajaguhyam.
Rajavidya Rajaguhyam.
Pavitramidam uttamam.
Pavitramidam uttamam.
Pratyakshagamya dharmyam.
Pratyakshaavagamam dharmyam.
Su-sukham kartumabhyayam.
Su-sukham kartumabhyayam. Anyone else? Okay. I'll read the synonyms. Rajavidya, the king of education. Rajaguhyam, the king of confidential knowledge. Pavitram, the purest. Idam, this. Uttamam, transcendental. Pratyaksha, by direct experience. Avagamam, understood. Dharmyam, the principle of religion. Su-sukham, very happy. Kartam, to execute. Avyayam, everlasting. Translation. Krishna says to Arjuna, this knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting, and it is joyfully performed. Okay, so I think we're in the middle of page 377, isn't it?
I think we covered this yesterday.
Well, we didn't read the whole purport, I know that. So we'll begin in the middle of 377 in most of your books with the paragraph beginning, it is said that. Okay? It is said that the execution of devotional service is so perfect that one can perceive the results directly. This direct result is actually perceived, and we have practical experience that any person who is chanting the holy names of Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, in course of chanting without offenses, feels some transcendental pleasure, and very quickly becomes purified of all material contamination. This is actually seen. Furthermore, if one engages not only in hearing, but in trying to broadcast the message of devotional activities as well, or if he engages himself in helping the missionary activities of Krishna consciousness, he gradually feels spiritual progress. This advancement in spiritual life does not depend on any kind of previous education or qualification. The method itself is so pure that by simply engaging in it, one becomes pure. And before I continue reading, I just want to make one note for the new people. Srila Prabhupada learned, he's Bengali, he was born in Bengal in 1896 in Calcutta, and he attended the Scottish Church's College, and I think he learned English in grade school or something, but it was definitely a second language, and it was English, not American English. And it was the early 20th century. So in those days, the pronouns, the him, he's saying him, he, it means human beings. It doesn't exclude ladies. And we see in the movement here, like today, the ladies are outnumbering the men, so there's no discrimination at all. So I just want to let you know that. In the Vedanta Sutra 3.2.26, this is also described in the following words. Prakashascha karman nirbhyasat. Devotional service is so potent that simply by engaging in the activities of devotional service, one becomes enlightened without a doubt. A practical example of this can be seen in the previous life of Narada, who in that life happened to be the son of a maidservant. He had no education, nor was he born into a high family. But when his mother was engaged in serving great devotees, Narada also became engaged, and sometimes, in the absence of his mother, he would serve the great devotees himself. Narada personally says, Uttishta lepan anumodito dvijay, sakrit smarbunje tadapasta kilbishaha. Evam pravittasya vishuddha chetasas tad dharma evatma ruchi pajayate. In this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.25, Narada describes his previous life to his disciple Vyasadeva. He says that while engaged as a boy servant for those purified devotees during the 4 months of their stay, he was intimately associating with them. Sometimes those sages left remnants of food on their dishes, and the boy who would wash their dishes wanted to taste the remnants. So he asked the great devotees for their permission, and when they gave it, Narada ate those remnants and consequently became freed from all sinful reactions. As he went on eating, he gradually became as pure-hearted as the sages. The great devotees relished the taste of unceasing devotional service to the Lord by hearing and chanting. And Narada gradually developed the same taste. Narada says further, Tatranvaham Krishna katapagayatam anugrahena shrinabam manoharaha ta shraddayame nupadam visrinvata priyashavasyangamama bhavad ruchihi. By associating with the sages, Narada got the taste for hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, and he developed a great desire for devotional service. Therefore, as described in the Vedanta Sutra, Prakashas cha karman yabhyasat, if one is engaged simply in the acts of devotional service, everything is revealed to him automatically, and he can understand. This is called pratyaksha, directly perceived. Okay, I'm going to stop there and we'll review. Om jnana timarandrasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshu unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance to him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, as I mentioned yesterday when we began this chapter, with text 1, and as described in both these verses, the word guhya tamam is used. Guhya means confidential knowledge. In this case, confidential means not really immediately perceivable by the senses. It's something very subtle and what we call transcendental. And so it has to be understood from a spiritual master or a guru, someone who's realized it and who has taken the trouble to teach it in such a way that it can be understood, or at least you can embark on the process by which you can understand it. So that's the first statement here in this verse. This verse is very important. Raja Vidya. So Raja Vidya means this is the king of knowledge. Now why would it be the king of knowledge? Welcome, Natalie. Is it Natalie? Yeah, Hare Krishna. Raja Vidya. Raja means king, and Vidya means knowledge. So there's all kinds of knowledge. There's different categories of knowledge. There's mundane knowledge, which involves understanding the workings of this world, psychology, and all kinds of things, unlimited knowledge. We have all these universities. But that knowledge is not called confidential, because it's something that you can understand with your senses and pertains to the working of this material world. We learn in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita that there is another stratum, a stratum of existence called spiritual. And the first lesson in that is to understand ourselves as spiritual beings. That we ourselves, it's called the Atma or Jivatma. And Krishna is teaching that to Arjuna at the beginning. And he has a very wonderful verse that explains that, and anyone can kind of intuit that and understand the process, the distinction between the soul, the living being, and the body that we inhabit. And he starts with this verse, Dehi nosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yovanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatar namuyati. He's describing here how even in this one body we are transmigrating from one to another. Meaning that the body is changing. Who can deny it? We may say it's growing, but it's basically changing, right? We have experience, we ourselves were once children. Everyone here was, I think, 7 years old at one time, right? Can anyone do it? No. So then we turn 8, 9, 10, and gradually we keep changing. And of course the changes are very slow. Our parents may not notice it right away. But obviously we're growing. Our brain, our mind, intelligence is developing. Our body is developing. And but we are the same person. We have the same name. And what is the quality of that soul is the knower. We ourselves are the conscious being that knows all these changes. We're very aware of what's happening in our body. If there's some pain, you stub your toe, you get some serious injury, suddenly you're very aware of it right away. But not in someone else's body. So this is said to be in the 13th chapter like a field of our activity and our consciousness for each individual soul. And it's not just human beings. Cats, dogs, even the plants have their life cycle. There is evidence, you can see, of a plant of consciousness. I always remember when I learned about the sunflowers in grade school, how they can move a little bit to get more sun, isn't it? Don't think they do that? They follow the sun. So that means there's a living being in there. If you uproot the sunflower, it's not going to do that anymore. It's dead. So we all have a life cycle. Every organism and all of the different categories of species, there's millions of them. But whenever you see the sign of life, there's a soul there. Whether it's a little bug, or a huge elephant, or a human being, we're surrounded by them. So that's the first lesson. And then the other part of it is, what are the qualities of the soul? The first thing to understand about the soul is that, which is really good news. Doesn't gospel mean in the Bible, it means the good news? I think the good news, right? So this is the first element of good news. We never were born and we'll never die. We're immortal, which means that we lived before. Before this body, we lived in another body. And the Vedic literature explains that there's a process of evolution, not of the bodies, but of the consciousness of the soul. So we've come up through all these species, and now we're in the human form of life. And this is a very special form of life, because the basic principle of the Vedic culture, of the Vedic wisdom, is that we have another plane of existence, which is where the passage of time doesn't deteriorate our life. In other words, time doesn't pass on the spiritual plane. And we have our eternal form that is fully conscious, fully aware, just like we are now. Like we're not fully aware now, but we have some inkling of it in the human form. And that's called the spiritual world. That's called we don't call it heaven, because we have different material heavens that we can go to in our lingo, which are much more wonderful than this plane, but more happiness, but we have to leave there eventually, because that's also a material strata. So the basic goal of human life should be to try to stop this process of transmigration, because it's very painful. All of us, right? The illusory energy of the Lord kind of puts us to sleep, and we don't really consider, especially when we're young, that I'm eventually going to have to die. You know that that's a fact, but I got so much stuff to do. I can't think about that right now. That's way in the future. I'm not going to worry about it. But actually, this process of birth, disease, old age, and death is universal for every embodied being, animal, human being, plant, everything. So we want to stop that. That's a source of great difficulty and misery for every embodied being, because just think of it like this: that we go through life and we establish certain things. We get a certain education. We have certain relationships. We have money in the bank. You may have some status. All of these things that go into making a human life. Some of them very painful. Some of them very wonderful. And this is it. But all of it is taken away when you die, and you don't know where you're going. You may get another human form of life. You may not. But whatever it is, you're going to forget, even if you're in human form of life. Does anyone here remember the past life, assuming that, it's true? No. Yeah, it's all gone. You could have been a great, business magnate. You could have been a ballet star. Who knows? But whatever you did to work to get that, it's all gone. Your relationships, children, parents, it's gone. It's all gone. You got to start fresh in this little life. So this is not a source of happiness. This is a source of great anxiety, is that there's no steady place here, no matter where you live. It seems to be, I've got some security now, but it's all illusion. It's all an illusion. So the Vedas are telling us, the Bhagavad Gita is the essence of the Vedic wisdom, is that we should try to find a way in which we can stop this process of transmigration, birth, old age, disease, and death. And that's the first benefit, not the only benefit, but the first benefit of being Krishna conscious, this process of bhakti yoga. The different kinds of yoga, Krishna has explained in the earlier chapters. And all of them, yoga simply means to link. That's it, to link one's consciousness with the supreme consciousness. There's different ways of doing it. Before I ever heard of Krishna consciousness, I practiced a little bit, but I read up on meditative yoga. This is commonly, when you think of a yogi, at least in the old days, they're meditating, right? In the forest somewhere, And you understand, this, achieving a higher state of consciousness, and you realize it. So this is one form of yoga. But in this age, it's very, very, very difficult to practice that for most of us and achieve success. because it involves a tremendous amount of mental and physical discipline. And Krishna describes, he summarizes in chapter 6, you have to be alone, you can't be distracted and everything. And who can live alone, in the forest somewhere? It's not possible. So you can practice that and get some benefits. I used to practice a little pranayama and meditation, and it was, I felt very good to calm my mind, and it was good. But I wasn't really using my time most expeditiously to achieve the goal, which is liberation. That's at first. So Krishna goes through the different yogas: karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, dhyana yoga, meditative yoga. And then in chapter 7, which is 2 chapters before, he starts speaking solely about bhakti yoga. And bhakti yoga, especially in this age, in this line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who will explain, maybe not tonight so much, but this process of chanting, which came up in this purport we read already, of this mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is the most efficacious way, as explained in the Vedas, for practicing yoga in this age, for achieving the goal of yoga, which is liberation from this imprisonment of birth and death, old age, disease, and reestablishment in our original, eternal identity of love for God in a certain relationship, eternally. That's the goal. So this chapter is going to deal with that. Raja Guhyam. Guhyam means very confidential, secret. Not everybody knows about this. And if they do know about it, they don't know about it in truth. They may think they know something about the Hare Krishnas, this or that. But unless you study the book and books and actually begin practicing, you're more or less on the outside looking in, and you have a distorted view. So these classes Srila Prabhupada established on the basis of reading his Bhagavad Gita as it is, and we have other books, so we can understand it as it is. And so this confidential knowledge, and then it's purifying. Pavitram idam uttamam. Well, why do we need to be purified? I'm pretty clean. Take a couple showers every day. And what's to be purified? The purification is internal. The purification is the heart and the consciousness. And what that means is that by leaving the spiritual world, the kingdom of God, and we're all kind of exiles here. It's very close to what the Bible says, the fall from grace. We've forgotten and ignored our eternal relationship with God. You can't break it because it's eternal, but we can forget about it. We can not want to be in that relationship. And then we're in this world of Maya. Maya means illusion. Illusion that we can enjoy here and be happy, that we can live eternally, which is ridiculous on this plane. But it's just one deep illusion and forgetfulness. So that brings all kinds of impurities. What's an impurity? An ardent desire to enjoy something in this world, material. You see? That kind of enjoyment, and I always come back to this verse, the central verse in the Bhagavad Gita. That material enjoyment, here's how transmigration works, it's very important to understand, is that we have actually two bodies. Two kinds of bodies. We have what we call the body, external body, made up of hands, legs, senses, and all the complicated machinery in the body that allows us to just live from day to day. It's amazing. I used to work in a hospital, and I take a break, a coffee break, whatever, and they had a little library there. And I would go in, and they had magazines, just on the kidneys, the brain, this disease, that disease. And this was like 50 years ago. This is 1972. And so it's much more involved now. The mysteries of how the body works, the different chemical reactions, they're always discovering new things. So it's an amazing machine. But what is the hospital? A hospital is a place where you find old age, disease, death, and birth. They're all there. Birth, old age, disease, and death. So you're surrounded by that. So I witnessed that phenomenon, up close. And as I was I started practicing this chanting and yoga, and I was trying, in my ignorance, I was trying to apply the mantra. It was so powerful. Maybe I can just project it and help this patient like this. I had a little success too. I'll tell you the story later. It's very powerful. But the point is that one thing you learn in Krishna consciousness is that we come from a supremely pure state. God is supremely pure. Everything is pristine, and there's no what we call selfish, desire there. The desire is all one of, we want to please Krishna through the acts of service, and he wants to please us. He wants to please us by give us ways to interact with him. And you read the Srimad Bhagavatam, or the 10th canto, the Krishna book, describing this, what's going on in the spiritual world. And it's, of course, what you're reading about there is the manifestation in the material world, in the land of Vrindavan in India, which is a replica of the spiritual world. So there's also demons who come to threaten, but Krishna kills them. He saves the Vrijvasi, so that's another Leela ultimately. But the point is that in the original spiritual world, it's anandambuddhi vardhanam. It's an ever-increasing ocean of bliss, which you don't experience here. Here we have little bits of sense pleasure, we know, but it comes and it goes. And the way the transmigration works, to get back to that, is that we experience some happiness here, some pleasure, and we want to do it again, and we want to feel it again. So that's recorded in your mind. And when the gross body breaks down, the subtle body survives. That carries you to the next gross body. Your mind, your intelligence, your ego, that doesn't die with the gross body. Did you ever hear of these near-death experiences? Now they're very common. When they first started to become popular back in the 70s, this was an empirical confirmation of the idea that the soul can live beyond the body. Because here you had people who almost died on the operating table or something, but they didn't die. So what happened? So they were hovering up near the ceiling, and they're watching the operation go on. They were probably pretty surprised that they didn't do that, but they were doing it. And when they came back in, they could describe some of it. And more precisely, or more deeply, there was a psychology professor in I forget where he was in some university in the south of the United States. And his name was Ian Stevenson. He must be dead by now. He was old in the 70s. But he heard about this, and he also heard about, have you ever heard of this, where children, you find it on the YouTube now, that some children can remember parts of their previous life. I remember there was this one case I encountered a few years ago, not in India, it was in America, and it was some kid who kept telling his parents, I used to be a pilot, in World War II. And I was flying this kind of plane, and they started describing the plane, and they started confirming what he was saying. And there was a pilot of that name who died in
It's on YouTube.
You've seen it. And these are like, Middle Western Methodists, they don't believe in that, right? And doesn't it the Christianity, you're born and you die and that's it. You have one shot, isn't it? No. So that was a challenge to them, but they couldn't deny the truth of everything he was saying. So the point is, please, the benches are made for you, for all of us. These are recent. We've got these in the last few months. So anyway, there is empirical evidence for reincarnation, and all of that is explained as kind of the A of the ABC of the science of bhakti. So what is the implication for us? It means that if we accept this truth and we try to practice Krishna consciousness, then our whole aspirations for what we should try to achieve in life will change. Because we don't want to try to achieve material things, whatever may be, prestige, money, that may be there, but it shouldn't be our primary goal. The primary goal should be to develop our Krishna consciousness so that when we finally leave this body, we don't have to come back, we go back to Godhead. Prabhupada's famous phrase, back home, back to Godhead. Back home, this is our home. And the wonderful thing about these books that Srila Prabhupada translated, the essence of the Vedic wisdom, is that they give us direct knowledge of the spiritual world, God himself, amazingly, what he looks like, how he acts, what he says, he's speaking. When he says, Shri Bhagavan, this verse we just read, Krishna speaks it. God is speaking this to his disciple there, and we're listening in. And he's giving us information and method by which we can also develop the consciousness. The key is the consciousness, so that when we finally leave this body, we won't come back to another gross body. We'll go back home, back to Godhead. And so that's why it's confidential knowledge and purifying. We want to get purified of all of those tendencies and all of those material desires that are blocking our consciousness of God and our real nature. And so that's why it said pavitram idam uttamam. And this chanting, now in this age especially, the most prominent and easy way to practice yoga is through sound. The sound yoga. These verses that we're reading, which kind of it's hard to get at first, this is Sanskrit language, very, very pure language. Sanskrit means perfectly composed, right? The very word Sanskrit. So these verses are also very potent and purifying. And most purifying of all is this mantra, Hare Krishna mantra. What does it mean? Just like we have here, what does each word mean, right? Raja Bija Raja. So Hare is a vocative form of the word hara, which is a name of God's personified internal pleasure potency. That's pretty mysterious at this point, but it's a female form, like the goddess of fortune, and she's personified mercy. She'll help us to enlighten us and get us closer to Krishna. So you chant Hare Krishna. Now, this is Sanskrit language. The word Krishna is composed of these two syllables, and the word Krish means to draw you, to be attractive. So what's attractive in a person? Well, obviously the form, beauty of the form, but also wealth, knowledge, strength, and all different varieties of strength, different varieties of beauty and things. So the word Krishna means supremely attractive, as personally attractive. And the word Rama means one who is experiencing the deep spiritual pleasure, of what we call Ananda. And Hare is, Hara, as I mentioned, is the goddess of fortune, and she's love for God personified. This is all very mysterious now, but that's what, the ultimate thing. So the idea is you're calling out. These are vocative forms. Just like in English, it's not such a refined language. But we have a form, if you want to call someone, oh Bob, oh Harry, like that. So it's called vocative. And we're calling out the Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And when you call out, it's so potent, you chant it one time, and all these, what we call sinful reactions, I think they came up in this, or does come up in this purport. These sinful reactions means, because there's a law. The word dharma means a religion. And it's set by God. It's, the rules. And basic rules, you don't exploit others, you don't cause harm to others. When you hurt some innocent person, like animals, that's why we're all famously vegetarians. You don't have to eat meat. I've been a vegetarian for 50 years. Before I joined, I became, And here I am, 75. I'm still dancing and chanting. I'm walking around, healthier. So even on a material level, it makes sense, But we're not just vegetarians. The whole idea is that eating it becomes a sacrament. When you prepare the food according to rules and regulations of cleanliness and so forth, and you offer to God on the altar. We have an altar. You'll be able to see the deities if you haven't seen already in a few minutes. And say certain mantras, and so you're cooking for God, you're offering to God, and then you're taking the remnants. Just as Narada Muni here. Narada Muni took these remnants. Now these sages, they're also offering to Krishna, so it's all what we call prasad. Prasadam means the grace of God. So you can contact through the sound, through the sight when you see the deities. Most important is the sound, because you can take that anywhere. You can chant Hare Krishna anywhere, anytime. Anybody can chant, and it's extremely purifying. So, but Krishna reaches out. He makes himself available in a way that we can see him and serve him. Otherwise, we can see marble, we can see stone, but we can't see spirit right now. So he appears through the marble and the stone. He appears through sound that we can hear, through the food that we can eat, you see, and the paintings and the sculpture we can see. So all of these things are ways in which we purify our consciousness, and the wonderful thing is even a little advancement, even a little chanting can relieve you from all these lifetimes of sinful reactions that are gradually, just like a disease, they progress and they eventually fructify into some suffering. You know, this is how the law of karma works. Is that you may have done something in your past life, and it's just developing, and then in this life suddenly somehow you get in an accident, or you become some disease or some what it is like that. Or good karma, you find yourself, oh, you pass the test, you know, you make some money, whatever. And these are all material things. But so that there's a tremendous how can I say it, organization of action and reaction that's going on, and judging by higher powers. Krishna, ultimately it's Krishna's super soul and all this. So this is the material world. But when we start acting in Krishna consciousness, we get relieved of so many lifetimes of sinful reaction, and our life becomes auspicious in the sense that we're able to progress on this path toward purity. And the wonderful thing is that, yeah, it may be difficult to succeed in this lifetime, but nothing is lost. In anything material, obviously, is taken away. Krishna says, "Mrityu sarvaharaschaham." As death, I take everything away at the time of death. Who can deny it? You have so much money in the bank, you know, but it all depends on your signature. It's tied to this body. When the body is gone, what happens to the money? You don't take it. You can't take it with you. So everything is taken, but not your spiritual advancement, because that's inherent in the soul, and the soul doesn't die. So if you make 5% advancement, you may not, then you'll start at 6% in the next life. So we should try to develop this Krishna consciousness as far as possible in this lifetime, and we'll be well on our way back to Godhead. Okay, I'm going to stop haranguing you now. Any questions or comments on some of these points? Because we kind of have some new people here. I wanted to introduce them. Okay, now just to finish the verse, pratyakshaavagamam. Now this is an important word. It means directly perceivable. It's not something that you're hoping is going to help you later on. You're confident, but you're not experiencing anything now. No, you experience as you practice devotion. You experience it. And how did you experience it? The two simple ways. One is that you become more attracted and more take more pleasure in the process of devotional service. For instance, this chanting of Hare Krishna. When you start it, okay, this is my practice, just like you're practicing some asana. Some of you may do yoga, It's a little hard at first, but I know it's good for me. Yeah, and if you really get into it, then, oh yeah, I feel more limber now, I'm loosened up. So you try it, it's an austerity, you do it, and there's the fruit. So similarly, in Krishna consciousness, what is the fruit of advancing? Well, first thing, you become more peaceful, the anxiety. I mean, I used to be, a child of the 60s, war in Vietnam, all of this stuff. I was kind of in anxiety and depressed, and I came through it. Just the election of Richard Nixon was a hugely depressing event in my life, in 1968. Anyway, that's a long story. So, but then I took up this process, and after some time, I haven't been depressed in all these years. I've been following strictly and chanting Hare Krishna, and so that's a negative thing. But the point is there's a lot of joy and happiness, and it's not dependent on your material condition. I haven't built up a big amount of money or anything like that, prestige. People know my name, but big deal, But that's it, But inside, Hare Krishna, I feel the same, pretty much, not physically, but the same way in terms of my mentality as I did when I was 25. I do a little dancing. You see me dance a little bit. I used to jump up and a lot, but now I find if I do that, the next day I can hardly walk my ankles, So I'm more horizontal. But the idea is it doesn't end, and the access to it, it's always with you. You can access the reservoir of pleasure in your heart by this process. And it's not something that's exhaustible. All the material things are exhaustible. The senses are certainly exhaustible. You can burn them out. If you have too much sense gratification, you'll have a lot of pain and suffering and whatever disease. But the more you chant Hare Krishna, the better you feel. Some people chant all day. They're perfectly happy, more than perfectly happy. They're joyful, So that's why it says here. So it's pratyakshavagamam, directly perceivable, dharmyam, what is this? The principle of religion, and su-sukham kartamabhyam. We had a devotee here some time ago, fairly recently. He would like this phrase. He knew this verse, su-sukham, very happy to perform. He was always jumping and dancing. He's elsewhere now. So it's not, it's not, oh yeah, if you want this, you're going to have to go through a lot of suffering, a lot of austerity and pain, and then you'll come out and you'll be blissful. No, the process itself is su-sukham. Sukham means happiness. Su-sukham means very happily performed. So, and abhyam, it's the eternal. So this is a kind of a verse. Prabhupada wrote this long purport. It's actually an essay in and of itself. And it should induce us, wow, this is something open to me. I don't have to pay a big fee to get into, and be eligible to study it. No, everybody. It's open to every single human being. And so we should try to, as Prabhupada, I don't think, I've kind of, maybe I should read the rest of the purport. Yeah, we can come to the end of the purport. You see at the end of the purport, Prabhupada kind of caps it off. So, okay, where do we stop? The word dharmyam? No, we read Tatran Vaham Krishna Katha Padgayatam. It's describing his life, how he became attracted. He was just a little child, but he contacted these devotees. Dharmyam, yeah, that's what I thought. The word dharmyam, this is near the bottom of 378, 1/3 up. The word dharmyam means the path of religion. Narada was actually the son of a maidservant. He had no opportunity to go to school. He was simply assisting his mother, and fortunately his mother rendered some service to the devotees. The child Narada also got the opportunity and simply by association achieved the highest goal of all religion. The highest goal of all religion is devotional service, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam. Savai pungsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshaje. Religious people generally do not know that the highest perfection of religion is the attainment of devotional service. That's the English translation of bhakti yoga. As we have already discussed in regard to the last verse of the chapter 8, Vedeshu Yagyeshu Tapaksu Jaiva, generally Vedic knowledge is required for self-realization. But here, although Narada never went to the school of the spiritual master and was not educated in the Vedic principles, he acquired the highest results of Vedic study. This process is so potent that even without performing the religious process regularly, one can be raised to the highest perfection. How is this possible? This is confirmed in the Vedic literature, Acharyavan Purusho Veda. One who is in association with great acharyas, acharyas means great teachers, even if he is not educated or has never studied the Vedas, can become familiar with all the knowledge necessary for realization. The process of devotional service is a happy one, su-sukham. Why? Devotional service consists of shravanam, kirtanam, Vishnu. So one can simply hear the chanting of the glories of the Lord, or can attend philosophical lectures on transcendental knowledge given by authorized acharyas. Simply by sitting, one can learn. Then one can eat the remnants of food offered to God. We have prasadam at the end of the kirtan, so that's also there. Nice palatable dishes. In every state, devotional service is joyful. One can execute devotional service even in the most poverty-stricken condition. The Lord says, Patram pushpam palam toyam. He is ready to accept from the devotee any kind of offering, never mind what. And the Prabhupada gives a translation, even a leaf, a flower, a bit of fruit, or a little water, which are all available in every part of the world, can be offered by any person, regardless of social position, and will be accepted if offered with love. There are many instances in history, simply by tasting the tulsi leaves offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, great sages like Sanat Kumara became great devotees. Therefore, the devotional process is very nice, and it can be executed in a happy mood. God accepts only the love with which things are offered to Him. It is said here that this devotional service is eternally existing. It is not, as the Mayavadi philosophers claim. These are impersonalists who don't believe in God. Although they sometimes take to so-called devotional service, their idea is that as long as they are not liberated, they will continue their devotional service. But at the end, when they become liberated, they will, quote, become one with God. Such temporary time-serving devotional service is not accepted as pure devotional service. Actual devotional service continues even after liberation. When the devotee goes to the spiritual planet in the kingdom of God, he is also engaged there in serving the Supreme Lord. He does not try to become one with the Supreme Lord. As will be seen in the Bhagavad Gita, actual devotional service begins after liberation. After one is liberated, when one is situated in the Brahman position, Brahma Bhuta, one's devotional service begins. Samak sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. By executing devotional service, one can understand the Supreme Lord. No one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead by executing Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, or any other yoga independently. I mentioned those earlier. By these yogic methods, one may make a little progress toward Bhakti Yoga, but without coming to the stage of devotional service, one cannot understand what is the Personality of Godhead. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is also confirmed that when one becomes purified by executing the process of devotional service, especially by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita from realized souls, then he can understand the science of Krishna, or the science of God. Evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogataha. When one's heart is cleared of all nonsense, then one can understand what God is. Thus the process of devotional service of Krishna consciousness is the king of all education and the king of all confidential knowledge. It is the purest form of religion, and it can be executed joyfully without difficulty. Therefore one should adopt it. As you can see, the Prabhupada ends with that. So we're going to have to stop in a couple of minutes, but it's worth going over this verse in purport because there's a lot of information here. But it's Prabhupada is trying to give us inspiration to take the process seriously, and studying Bhagavad Gita and chanting Hare Krishna are a wonderful basis of that. Okay, so I've written a couple of poems, so I'll share one with you now, if you don't mind. So this is how let's see. Lord Chaitanya is teaching Sanatana Goswami, one of our great acharyas, and he says, "Kamadinam katina katita bhavita durniteshas tesham jata mayana kadunana tapano prashanti utrajaitanadi yodapate sampatam labdha buddhis tramayata akshadanamabayam mamna yung swadmadasi." In how many ways have I sought to obey the seductive demands of my wicked desires? They've shown me no mercy. But on I've gone, shamelessly trying to quench lust's unquenchable fires. But now I'm rejecting these hellish desires, for my higher intelligence now has awoken. O Krishna, O shelter of fearlessness, please let me serve you with faith that will never be broken. Or and about the holy name, we have a tiny bit of time. Cheto darpana marjanam, bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam, shreya kaidava chandrikavadadanam vidyavadhu jivanam, anandam buddhivardhanam pratipadam purnamita swadanam sarvatmasnapadam padam vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. All glories to the chanting of Shri Krishna's holy names, which easily extinguishes samsara's blazing flames by polishing the lust-encrusted mirror of the heart. That chanting is the waxing moon that knows the secret art of causing the white lotus of good fortune to unfurl its petals far and wide throughout this bleak and blighted world, of transcendental knowledge which will take us to life's goal. The chanting of the name of Krishna is the life and soul. The ocean of ecstatic bliss floods far beyond its bounds, wherever Krishna's merciful and mystic name resounds. Indeed, whenever Krishna's names are sung in congregation, at every step one tastes a joy that knows no limitation. So hear with great attention as I earnestly request, please chant Shri Krishna's holy name and be supremely blessed. The soothing nectar of the name will bathe your consciousness, bestow pure love for Krishna, and eradicate distress. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. And now we'll get a chance to chant Hare Krishna. And if you forget the mantra, there it is. So we will resume on Monday, text 3. And you're all invited. Hare Krishna.